Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good yourself.
Good. I'll make you a co-host for the point later when you're presenting.
Perfect.
That's already done. And we have your one poll ready to launch during the opening part about how many people are using time cards or whatever it was.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. So is that to be mentioned?
Polls that are coming out just to get a feeling for how people use projects and that. Yep.
Perfect. Do I mention it myself, or is that something?
I think Mark's going to do it during the opening. I sent him a question I didn't see, but during our sort of open introduction, the thought was put it out there, then you'll already sort of see the response before you go on.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm just gonna try to share my screen. I want to see if it's functional here. So
Yep, no worries. Yep, I see your right now. Yep.
do I have to go in presenter mode like this?
Yeah, go ahead and go into your, like, start your slide. Yeah, I see just your beautiful, do a slide advance. Yep, who we are. Yep, looking good. Yep, nice and crystal clear.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. And then I'm just a short presentation, then I'm gonna go into a demo mode. So I'm just gonna switch screen after that.
Wonderful. Yep, that works just fine. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. So I'll just mute myself and get off camera until.
All right. Yeah, we've had 40 pre-register, so hopefully we'll have a good
40?
turnout today. Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. So 10 minutes should be the time that I'll be allotted, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. I'm just gonna get them muted before I get started.
Yeah, no, totally understand. I will do the same shortly too. Yeah. Morning, Mark.
Good morning. How are you?
That's right. I just sent you the answer back. So the polls are just when they launch. So they launch, people get a pop-up window, they answer. Once a whole bunch have answered, then I hit display results and a window pops open that shows everybody the results.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But if
Perfect.
they come in late, no, they've missed it. So our sponsor's already on. We tested his sharing. Everything is good. And he knows we have his poll in our opening section.
Perfect.
Yeah, so if you want, you can either call for it. Well, we have a quick poll, do that, and they get one, but there's 4 of them. Then you can call for 2 or 3, or I'll just randomly, launch them 1, 2, 3, 4 while you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the first one I did make the way Lisa wanted. It was yes, basically simple version, yes, more advanced version, no. How they were using projects.
Okay.
We have 40 pre-registered,
How many? Sorry?
40.
Great.
And lots new ones came from the NetSuite promotion.
Excellent. Right.
Hey everyone,
Morning.
good morning. Happy Friday Eve.
I like Friday Eves.
Right, it is 10 a.m. Thanks for everybody joining. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. We'll get everybody a chance to get in. All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us for our spring meeting. I think we're ready to kick this off. There will be more joining. We had really good subscriptions to this one here, and people signing up. And part of that is with thanks to NetSuite, who also took our agenda and pushed that out to. And sorry, we don't really know who. However, it could be the person that's responsible for your tenant at NetSuite, or it could be administrators. We're not quite sure just yet, but we were very happy to see the little bump in participation for this morning. So that's really good. And welcome everyone. If you're new to our Ontario NetSuite user group meetings, we've been meeting like this for I think almost 3 years now. We started off in person. Actually, it was hybrid in person, where because the GTA is such a struggle to get to. It's gotten better now with the new HOV lane and some of the construction that's maybe finished up. But we offered the meeting online as well as in person. We would love to get back to that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in one of my slides as well. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mark Tanner. I work for Danby Appliances out in Guelph, and I'm your co-chair for this ONSUG user group. So let's go through a few of the slides here. Let's talk our agenda. So, and by the way, Darrell is going to be posting a few polls as I'm talking, just to gather some feedback, and we're going to share the results with everybody as well. This is going to help presenters as well as us as the board, getting some of your feedback and interaction. And as always, you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and we definitely have a Q&A at the end, and we probably will have time to do a small Q&A at the end of each of our presentations. So I'm doing the welcome right now on behalf of our board, and we've got NetSuite managing projects in NetSuite. Adam's going to present. He is from NetSuite Oracle as well, which is great to have him here. We have a meeting sponsor, Blue Momento. So Michelle is going to tell us all about that offering as well, and we really thank them for sponsoring our meeting today. And I believe he has a draw as well that he's going to publicize too. And we also have a poll question that's specific for Blue Momento. Workflows and enhancements. We're going to tackle this a little bit differently. We are asking you in the polls for what is your experience with workflows? Are you a beginner, intermediate, advanced, you experts? Just so that we can gauge a little bit. But Alan has got some great examples to show us that are a little bit more on the stretching our knowledge side.
Like bring home boxes.
And actually, if we can mute everyone. Okay, that's great. I got him. We have a customer spotlight. Stephanie is going to talk about Fuse Health and what they're doing with projects. Might be in NetSuite, outside of NetSuite, and it's great to have a company spotlight to know how others are actually using NetSuite. So really, we are looking for other customer spotlights. Stephanie is on our board. I did the last one I can't remember who did the last one before, but it tends to be our board members that are doing this, but it is open to all of our members. So if you would love to do, a little spotlight on your company and how you're using NetSuite, we can help you with that. And we've got some slides and stuff that kind of help the conversation. So really would love to do that. And then lastly, we bring a question. So think of questions on NetSuite. Doesn't have to be related to the subjects today, but if you just have a question you want to put out there, we've got a lot of people with good knowledge across NetSuite and a lot of different functional areas that we find that this portion of it is very good and helpful. Okay. Right. Our board members, I'm not going to go through everybody, but we do have a very strong board that we meet. It's almost every 2-3 weeks and try to enhance what we're offering all of you as members. And we're really hoping, again, even though you may not be on the board, but if you have good ideas, bring it to us, and we would be happy to implement and discuss and make this even a stronger user group moving forward. I have a few announcements, and this is something I'm kind of taking from one of the other user groups that I've attended with, and they have an announcement area where they allow anybody to unmute your mic and tell us if you have a job opening that you're looking for NetSuite help in your environment, and if any of our members here can help steer you to maybe somebody that has experience with NetSuite. Doesn't have to be an admin role or developer role. It could be in finance, sales, wherever. But I want to open it up right now if anybody has any announcements or job openings or anything that you want to share with the group. Don't be shy. And I know I'm putting you on the spot. So think of this for the next meeting as well. It's another avenue for you to advertise any job openings at your company as well. We want to help everyone grow and strengthen everyone's membership here. Okay, and also feel free to put it in the chat if you've got a job posting. Okay. 2023.1 release. I know we were upgraded last weekend, so it's pretty timely for us. We did notice a few hiccups, a few things with, we have a lot of Suitelets here at Danby that we've customized and built, and we did notice that they were not launching from menu items any longer. And we had to go and redeploy some of the Suitelets to make them available. That was one very small thing that we noticed hiccuping with our .1 release, but I wanted to open it up to anybody else have comments around the .1 release, or maybe you don't have your upgrade yet.
Yeah, we've set up a
schedule.
Yeah, we've set up a time already.
Jason, I'm just going to mute your phone here. Anybody else have any experiences with the .1 release so far? No? Good. Okay. Again, Rebecca, do you have something?
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't even notice that I got upgraded. Like nothing happened, nothing went wrong. So always
That's
great.
the way we like it.
Yeah.
Kind of. and NetSuite, with these releases, a lot there's more functionality there in the background, and look at the release notes and everything else, after the fact. But a lot of those are all turned off, right? And not necessarily turned on to interrupt our processes that we have, which is a good thing from a NetSuite perspective and a development perspective. But we have to kind of go searching for, okay, what actually was upgraded and what's new. Any other comments? Okay, you may or may not have received an email from Evan earlier this week about customer appreciation. I think it was a customer appreciation day celebrated, and in there he basically announced that they have a free Explorer Pass right now that's good for the next couple of weeks. So if you are interested in that, you can scan this QR code that's on your screen right now to bring you to that site, more information about it. I know I personally, we updated to the Learner Pass probably about 3 months ago now. And I was really surprised with all the content, really good content walkthroughs and learning paths on this offering from NetSuite. There is a cost to it. And when you pay for that, it goes to all of your users in your tenant. So it's really based on how many number of users you have. But take advantage of the free Explorer Pass right now. Okay. So, and again, you can scan that QR code and everybody will get a copy of these slides after the meeting as well. Increased activities. So we want to be back in person as soon as possible. We are aiming for like a mid-June for our next meeting. And we are interested in feedback as to whether or not you would you'd be good with back, in person. And when our session ends today, you will get a poll, and one of those questions will be, hey, do you want to, back in person? Would you attend? So we're interested in your feedback there as well. Okay, and of course we would run this, assuming that the venue that we can pick in the GTA area has the capability for us to run a hybrid meeting. We will do that as well. Okay. Lunch and learn online meetings. I would love to do a few lunch and learn meetings in between our big official meetings like this one. Look for that as well. And I want to increase our LinkedIn activity. We don't really have a forum as a membership here, but know that we do have a LinkedIn, an official LinkedIn site, and you can post comments there. There is a process to posting. So when you post, your board member will take a look at that posting and make sure that it is acceptable for the group. And the reason we do that is we do have other vendors that are trying to sell their services directly to our membership, and we want to limit that. So we really want our LinkedIn to be helping others and helping other members. And then lastly, a little shout out for our ONSUG.org website. This is where you can find all your recordings. I imagine you all made it there because you registered and you're in our meeting, so that's good. But just know in our member section that we do have a spot there to review any of the meetings that we've had in the past. So especially you guys that are new, welcome you to catch up on some of the previous meetings that we've had over the few years. Okay, so once again, thanks for our meeting sponsor. They really help us out with some of the expenses that the user group does incur, and helps us. We have a process. We review the sponsors, make sure that what they're pitching is something valuable for our membership. And Blue Memento, actually, I met Blue Memento at SuiteWorld last year. They were one of the few that found our table at the user group open event, which was fantastic and good to meet them. And they've got a great, product. I love their tagline there: "Focus on your life, not your timesheet." So they'll be walking us through a little bit of their solution and pitch a little bit later today. Okay, so Adam, I believe you're on the call. I think I saw you there. It is over to you, sir, to present projects for us.
Thanks, Mark. Let me share out my presentation here. While I'm doing that, nice to meet everyone. Glad to be on. I actually worked with Gavin for quite a long time, although different focus areas, but we crossed paths. It doesn't look like he's on today, but I saw you had him listed on the board for the user group. So, but again, great to meet everyone. I've been with NetSuite for over 12 years, and my focus is more in the services space as we go to market. So projects is near and dear to my heart ever since I've been with NetSuite. That those are the types of customers and prospects that I've worked with. My role now, just as on the vertical product management team, is I'm kind of a liaison between helping support our go-to-market efforts, meeting with our account managers, our sales reps, and also with customers. But I also work internally with our development team, so helping drive the strategy and roadmap. And again, my focus is more on services, and then I have peers that focus on other verticals, whether it's manufacturing, wholesale distribution, software, et cetera. So yeah, again, happy to be here and covering off the project's functionality. You can see my slide and everything okay, Mark? I'll take the,
All's good.
Oh, good. Okay, great. And feel free to kind of chime in, keep me honest on time. I have a history of being long-winded at times, so I'll try to make sure we can cover. I have a decent amount of slide content here, and I also know there's some other topics that you want to cover today. So we'll, again, please feel free to keep me honest on time. A couple of things I just wanted to set the stage for folks that maybe aren't using projects at all or aren't really familiar with the functionality on the NetSuite side, kind of what is included, not included, before I get more into the full suite projects functionality. And in the poll, it seemed like there's a little bit of use of some of these features, but certainly not across the board. So with general NetSuite, if you just have the base financials capabilities, there's what we used to call basic projects, but in the settings, it's labeled projects. And so that's part of your normal SKU. Everyone has access to it. It's very basic tagging of projects to transactions. So your project's part of the customer record. So on a customer, you'd have to say, I want to create a new project. And then when you go to enter a vendor bill, a journal entry, you can enter time. There will be a customer field where you can select that project. And now you can run a search and include that attribute for reporting on a financial statement. You can also include that customer project, but that's about it. So, if you need to do any sort of managing a project schedule with phases and tasks, or staffing resources, or getting into more detailed project billing, that's where you move down to that middle tier, which is the project management module. So that is a separate license. That's all we used to refer to as advanced projects. So for folks that have been working with NetSuite for a while, you may have heard that term. So it's an add-on module, and that's where it introduces more of that type of functionality. And then suite projects is an additional SKU, which includes project management. So you get the billing and project scheduling that goes along with it. And then there's some advanced features too. So things like resource allocations, where I can do more high level staffing of resources. You can track skills on your resources, do searching off of that, as well as on the kind of project budgeting side, we can create project budgets. You can track actuals against that, and there's reports for budget versus actual as well. So those are kind of the three tiers. It might be more helpful on the next slide. And this is a bit of an eye chart. I'm not going to cover all of this. I kind of want to get more into the specific feature screenshots and whatnot, but we'll have this as a reference that you can go back to. So again, those three buckets, projects, you can see it's very basic. I can log time and expense transactions against the project. There's very basic search and kind of financial reports. Project management is where you can now set up a schedule, assign resources to tasks. You can do project billing. There's a project profitability report where you can capture all your costs and revenue against the project and report on that. And then the third tier is the full suite projects, which is, again, an additional license. And that's where on the bottom you can see, again, things like resource skills and our allocation chart, which I'll talk more about, the project budgeting, being able to capture vendor bills, expenses down to a project task level, and also a relatively new suite app that we released called Project 360, which takes a lot of the reports and analytics and puts it into a consolidated view, more geared to project managers. So high level, that's kind of what your options are as far as leveraging projects. One thing to note, again, it all kind of builds off each other. The projects or basic projects, if you turn on project management, you're using the same record. So it's not like it's some sort of re-implementation or anything like that. So you can certainly kind of start off with, hey, let's just use basic projects. We now want to do some more. We can add on project management, and you'll be able to continue using the same kind of project records that you are. It's just you'll now have more functionality on those projects. And then when you add suite projects, again, we're just introducing more functionality. So it's not some sort of completely separate module or thing. It's more just adding functionality to the experience. So let's get more into kind of the actual feature functionality and what's included. So again, when we talk about suite projects, you might refer to me, or I might refer to professional services automation, or PSA. So that suite projects is our PSA on the NetSuite platform. So again, it's a unified system, and we include the project management capabilities, scheduling, resource management, reporting like project profitability, budget versus actual, our timesheets and expense reports, which do not require projects, but they work directly with them. So you're able to track time against the project task, and bill for it. Same thing on the expense side. And again, with suite projects, we have unique, what we call billing and revenue rules, where you can have different types of billing on a given project when you're leveraging the suite projects functionality. And you know, what if you were considering it, you know, why you might be thinking about suite projects. Again, it's a strong fit for, you know, customers that want a unified system to not only manage maybe CRM and of course financials with NetSuite, but also being able to track their projects and do the billing rev rec and capture all those costs against projects in a single system. You know, admittedly, the functionality is more built specifically for billable services organizations because of the profitability tracking and billing and revenue recognition on those projects. We do have customers that leverage the project functionality for internal project tracking as well. So that's not out of the realm. It's just you wouldn't be able to take advantage of the billing and revenue if it's just we're tracking you kind of internal type projects. So we do have customers that are leveraging it. You just won't be able to use some of the features won't be as relevant in that case. And you know, again, it's really around being able to track the project life cycle directly within NetSuite is where we're kind of hitting on some of these additional bullets for the cost benefits. And just kind of hammering that point home, and then I'll get more into the actual product capabilities. But that unified suite, you know, again, having financial, CRM, you know, for those that use Suite People, there's some connection into Suite projects as well, as far as time off, as an example, and affecting scheduling of resources and you know, having time feed in for payroll purposes. So there's definitely some unification there as well, but just having, you know, all that directly within NetSuite. So getting more specifically into the functionality, and I have more screenshots that we'll cover off as well. But with Suite projects, you can see all the different key areas of functionality, which I've already kind of spoken to. But with project management, scheduling with phases task assignments when I'm actually scheduling an individual resource, whether it's generic or a named person. We have project templates to help with the project creation process. The project profitability report is a big requirement that we get from customers, where again, they want to capture the cost on the project. We can also capture the billing and revenue, and then report on the profitability as well. And then things like our Project 360, which is more of an analytics view of KPIs off of our projects. And then resource allocations is more of the resource management piece, skill tracking. And then on the job costing side, that's more around our project budgeting and reporting. A feature we call post time, where you can actually take time and create a journal entry from it. And there's also some intercompany support there as well, if you're sharing resources between different subsidiaries. So that's the high level view. Before I get into some of the screenshots, maybe I'll just take a quick pause. Any questions up to this point that I can help answer? Okay, we'll keep going. So I wanted to kind of give you a little bit more details of the features that we just were referencing. So starting with project management, you'll have a project record. It's a separate list view. They're associated to customers. We also have project templates, which is what you're seeing on the screen here. And so you can build out your schedule in the main page there that you're seeing. I have different phases and then down to tasks, and we can plan out work for each of those. And so when I go to create a new project, I can use a template as a starting point. That can also have the billing setup already defined on the template. So it helps with kind of standardizing your project creation. And so now you don't have to start from scratch every time. We're able to take the template, copy it, and then start running with the rest of the project set up. I mentioned tasks, that schedule, and they're also can be set up as a milestone. So again, in that project schedule, we'll build out the phase tasks like what you're seeing here. And that's where we're defining how much work we think it's going to take. That's where we can schedule the individual resources and how much hours we expect them to take on it. If you mark these as milestones, those also can be triggers for billing and revenue. So often that we might have a project where we can't bill the customer until milestone X is achieved. And so we can set up the rule ahead of time. Once someone marks that milestone complete, that's going to initiate billing off of that project, and we can create the invoice from there. So introducing some automation from that perspective as well. Also within project management is what we refer to as charge-based billing. And that's a billing rules engine where you can start to get more detailed in how we want to invoice projects. And you can also mix and match these rules. So I can set up what we call a time-based rule where any hours entered on timesheets against that project, I can now monetize. And I can have rates based off of the type of service they picked, based off their own employee billable rate, or what we call a billing class. A project manager bills out at $200 an hour, a consultant bills out at $150. And you can have rate tables and multiple rate tables and even have them specific to different customers so that you can really get pretty flexible in how you're defining those rules. You can set up caps. So if I have a not to exceed contract with a customer where we're going to bill you labor and up until 20,000, it will shut that off so that you're not overbilling by mistake. And then we have rules for things like fixed fee, which I was mentioning before. You can see the example here, a milestone. So in that case, we're saying when our configuration is marked complete, we're going to bill $10,000 out to that customer. So these are all things that can be set up in a template, copied over, or you can create them directly on the project and automate that. There's other fixed fee rule on a % complete, or just a fixed amount that we want to bill out on the project. You can also set them up for pass-through expenses from your expense reports, as well as purchases. So from vendor bills, non-inventory type items that we're entering against our project, we can bill for those. Those rules, as I was referring to, create what we call charges. And so here off of the project, I can click my manage pending charges, and it shows me, again, so I can see I have some installation labor charges from our timesheet. I have airfare that was entered from our expense report. So those are all values that I can put them on hold or make them non-billable for whatever reason if we can't invoice the customer. But anything that's ready to bill, the next time I create an invoice, that's going to be included on the invoice out to the customer. And then from a project profitability perspective, we have a configurable reporting tool where you can define what types of accounts show up where on our project profitability reports. So how you handle expenses or service items, assets, where do we want those to be defined on the report? And what types of accounts get included as cost versus what's included as revenue. And you can also do things like committed costs. So if I enter a purchase order, that doesn't have a GL impact, but we want to show that as a potential cost on our project. So there are all these different rules that we can specify within our project profitability setup, what types of things to include. And then the end result is a report that we would now have by customer and project. Again, defining based off the configuration that we just walked through, I can define our costs, our expenses, our services, what we have for costs, our revenue, and then on the right-hand side is the profitability of each of those on a per project basis. So something that's very important for typically for a services type business. So that's all included in project management capabilities. And then I'm going to get to some of the other suite projects functionality. I just want to check the chat. There's a question here. Are all these project records available for CSV import? The projects are project tasks. There's a unique area to do that. You can use a Microsoft project file or a CSV to create your project tasks. It's a little bit, I'll just be honest, a little bit more clunky than the normal CSV import tool, but that is possible. There may be some that are not. So things like billing rules are not available to CSV import. They are scriptable, so you can script the creation of them. So possibly something I can follow up with what records are included in CSV port, but the main projects certainly are. And then there's a question here about intercompany projects. So I may table that one, and if we have some time at the end, and if not, be happy to follow up offline on that one. Any other questions so far? Okay. Getting into the resource management piece, what we refer to as resource allocations. Again, we really support kind of two different staffing strategies in NetSuite, and you can use both. But top down is our resource allocation, where I can just say, I need to staff someone to the project. And as a resource coordinator, that's all I care about. I don't need to know what tasks they're doing. And then the bottoms up approach is more of what we refer to as our task assignments. And that's where a project manager typically is going in and saying, Abby is doing this task and Joe is doing that task. And so we can get more granular in how we're doing the individual staffing. So we have a couple different options for doing those. Here's just kind of a comparison of why you might use one versus the other. So with task assignments, that's included in project management and also suite projects, whereas resource allocations is only, you have to have the full suite projects functionality in order to use it. And there's some nice things where you can set default. So if I schedule, I'll use Abby as my example, 8 hours on this day to work, and here's a service item, here's the billing that I class for that person. When they go to fill out their timesheet and pick that task, it's going to pre-populate those values, so we can add some more automation and defaults to that process. The limitations are we don't have any skill tracking or advanced kind of searching on availability and skills. That's where the resource allocation comes in, where it creates skills off of each of your employee records that you can enter. It includes a detailed search, and it supports more of that top-down scheduling approach. So with that, just kind of showing you a little bit more of the details there. It includes this resource allocation chart. So now I have a graphical view of all my resources. I can see what projects they're allocated to. If they're red, they're overbooked. So I'd have to go in and maybe make a change. There's some different color coding if they're under allocated, and I can go in and kind of view the details of what projects that person's scheduled to. There's drag and drop on here too if I needed to move out an allocation that is supported. We also, as I mentioned, have the skills tracking. So on your employee record, there'll be a tab for skills and expertise. These are all configurable. So this is just a sample, but so you can kind of build out. I have one that's called product knowledge, and then we're looking at, who knows, ERP, payroll. You can also add a skill level to it. Are they advanced, intermediate? Again, those are values that you would populate with how you want to track that. And then you're able to, based off of skills and availability, so what they've been scheduled to, and things like work calendars, I can do a search where I need to find a consultant that knows ERP and JavaScript, and then it spits out the results, which is what you're seeing on the right-hand side. And I can see their score, based off of their skills. I can download resumes if they're attached. I can see their availability. And then from there, I can select that resource and they're allocated to the project. Okay. Great. And then we have, oh, just saw the time check. Thanks, Mark. The last area part of suite projects is job costing. And so again, going into the functionality there, we can now create more detailed project budgets with this feature enabled. So I can start to build out what the cost and expected revenue are. You can do just a high level for the overall project, or you can do a monthly, which is what I have selected here in the drop down. So each month I'm keying in what the cost and revenue expected budget is for this project. And then where that comes in handy is that when you enter in actual transactions, whether it's time, expense reports, vendor bills, even journal entries, I can then compare. So I can see the cost, which is our actual, our cost budget, same thing on the revenue side, and then see how much we've burned of that budget. And those are things that are available directly on the project to view as well. Another kind of more advanced feature, I mentioned this before, is the ability to post time. So you can, the time can show up as a cost directly on the budget versus actual or your project profitability report. But if you need to actually have a GL impact for that time, we want to see the cost affecting the GL. I can take the timesheet entries. There'll be a cost rate defined on that individual employee, and then that creates a journal entry where I can then accrue the cost tagged against the project. Where I see this probably used a little bit more is for doing intercompany transactions too. So if I shared a resource from, in this example here, I have a US resource that worked on an Australia project. And so this will allow me to move the cost from the US GL over to Australia. So we're able to, excuse me, I just had to sneeze. We're able to move those costs over and still affect the project cost for profitability reporting, but then also make sure we're hitting the appropriate subsidiary. And then the last area as it relates to suite projects is that Project 360. And so this is a suite app that you can install, and it provides a portfolio view, typically for a project manager, but we're actually enhancing it next month where you can provide access to finance users as well, to multiple projects or supervisors, so they can see the project managers that they manage. And it gives me a portfolio view, and there's kind of risk factors depending on how many tasks have been resourced or the unbilled charges. And so that's going to affect that overall status where you can look, okay, this project I need to take a look at. And when you click into a project from this portfolio view, it brings you to a project kind of dashboard with multiple tabs on the left-hand side. And so it's going to have KPIs, other relevant information about the project. There's a take action area too, so you can go directly to the project or update the client record in this example. And then each of these will have different metrics, each of the different tabs. So there's one that's focused on the resource scheduling. And so I can see the Gantt chart for the project and also what resources have been allocated to it. There's the budget versus estimate at complete and against actuals, where we can do some comparisons. There's the billing and revenue, so I can see any invoices, anything that's been paid was going to show up on that, as well as a customer contact if I need to reach out to them. And then a financial area that's going to show the profitability. So some different views, kind of taking the reports that we have and putting it into a single view for the customer to see. I'm sorry, for the project manager to see.
There's a question in the chat, Adam.
Oh, sure. Let me pop open that. Yeah, so there's a question here from Lisa about the relationship between task and activity code versus the GL account. So Activity code is a custom segment that gets added when you turn on the project budgeting feature. It can be exposed across all the transactions, whereas a project task still, there's certain transactions like sale, an invoice, journal entry that don't have it. So if you want to have more detailed budget versus actual, the activity code is a better way to do that, because we can tag the actuals against those activity codes. So again, on an invoice, I can select it. On a journal entry, I can select it. Right now, project task is only available on timesheets, expense reports, vendor bills, and purchase orders, but it's not on the sales and journal entry side. So that's probably a better avenue for if you need to have more detailed budget versus actual down to that level. Hopefully that helps there. I just have 3 more slides, and I think I might have a minute for any follow-up questions too. So there's also some Suite apps that you can install that are relevant to projects functionality and Suite projects. So the invoice presentation template, this is if you're using that charge-based billing feature I mentioned a little bit earlier for billing out projects, and it allows you to provide more charge details as backup pages to your invoice. So there's a little configuration area where you can select your templates and pick what values from the charge you want to include. You can also include receipts from expense reports. And so when you go to create your invoice, there'll be subsequent pages. In this case, I can now see who the employee was, their billing class, how many hours. So again, in those dropdowns, you can pick what fields you want to show to your customer on the invoice. And also things like receipts, where we get that from time to time. If I'm passing through an expense, the customer wants to see the actual receipt that the employee entered in. So you have some more flexibility in providing more detail on the invoice. That's a Suite app. There's also one for project classification. So natively, we don't have class, department, location on your project. You install the Suite app, it adds those 3 fields to the project, and then you can pick and choose what transactions you want that to default onto, so that when I go to fill out a vendor bill, I went the opposite way, sorry about that. When I go to fill out a vendor bill, I have my department, location, class on the project. I pick the project, it's going to default in that same department, class, location onto the transaction record. So it's providing some more automation there. And then the last one is this purchase to project, where this is going to add a procurement tab to a project record. And now I can easily create a purchase order. There's a button there. It shows me any purchase orders that are tagged to the project. There's also a tab for vendor bills. And we provide automation so that if a project manager is entering in a purchase order, we may only want them to pick from some approved project vendors. And so there would be an ability to limit the vendors they can choose and select from when they go to fill those out. So I know I'm running up against the time here. That was my speed session on projects. I hope you found that helpful. I'm just looking up, there's a question here. Are these Suite apps only available with Suite project model? The Project 360 requires Suite projects that SKU or license. The ones I just showed, the invoice presentation template, project classification, and purchase project, you need to have at least project management, that middle tier that I showed earlier in the presentation. Mark, I know you wanted me to kind of to wrap up there, but happy to, if we have a minute, I can take any other live questions, or we can also do some follow-up. So happy to do that.
Any other questions, team? This was great, Adam. Thank you for the overview. I do know that some of our board members are using projects, and if you can stay on, Stephanie's going to go through what her company is doing too with relation with projects. I do know some NetSuite customers try to implement projects, and then we get stuck in some spots, and then we have to either customize or go outside. But you know, I hope that you're open to some of those questions as well, even if it's after this meeting, because I know that we want it to be successful. That's for sure.
Sure,
There is
absolutely.
a question question in there about intercompany projects?
Yeah, so real quick, I can just mention, so the projects can only be tied to a single subsidiary. There is a setting where you can allow time and expense capture from other subsidiaries onto that project. And that's where there's an intercompany adjustment feature where it can move the cost for those. Where there's a limitation is things like vendor bills and purchase orders are not easily tagged as an intercompany. So that's more of an enhancement that we would need to add. But time and expenses can be charged across subsidiaries on a project.
But is it restricted because can you use the representing a subsidiary feature like the automatic IC customer? That was what I was trying to do. And
that has not been extended to the project record. So that's still just at so a customer can have projects in different subsidiaries, but a project itself cannot have a representing, so it can't have multiple subsidiaries tagged to it for other transactions. It's just time and expense that is supported right now.
Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, and Mark, I can stay on, so I can try to go through the chat too if that helps. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for your support, Adam. Really appreciate your this morning and putting that together and presenting. That's great. Excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up is Blue Memento, our sponsor for today. Michelle, are you presenting?
Yep, I'm all set up.
Okay, go for it.
Get that. Just go share my screen.
You okay there, Michelle? You need some help? Oh, there it is. It's coming now.
Oh, here it is. Sorry about that.
We're just
Looking
seeing
for-
your slide deck right now,
Yeah.
not the presentation view.
There you go. Sorry about that.
There it is. Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm on slide one. All right, thank you very much for having us. Sorry for a little delay. I had a lot of screens open at the same time. So thanks to Darcy and Mark for having Blue Memento over. We're really happy to be here. For anyone who didn't get the chance also to enter the raffle, just wanted to quickly remind everybody, it's the link's on the invite. So you have until the end of the day today. We're going to be announcing the winners tomorrow. So we have a $250 gift card from Amazon. So go ahead and enter the entries. So quickly, who is Blue Memento? So Blue Memento is a product essentially developed by a company called Dun Technologies. So Dun Technologies is a Quebec-based technology company, a software and product development company. We've been doing that for over 22 years now. And we've been developing products, coaching and agile training as well in our separate division. But essentially what we do is B2B type products and solutions for different type of needs in different industries. And we've also developed and commercialized products over the last 20 years in different spheres. Two of them gained success on third-party platforms. Some were licensed to other companies as well. And we put a lot of effort in that. We usually understand the gaps in the market and we try to come up with a creative solution to craft the solution. So Blue Memento is basically one of the ideas that we had over the last couple of years. So it is essentially a timesheet product, and we understand kind of the challenges everyone kind of goes through with regards to timesheets. I know some of you might have experienced that as well. So people finding timesheets a little boring. They can't remember what they've done the last week. It doesn't really focus on the user. A lot of times it focuses on the end result. It's a waste of time and it's not user friendly. So all these type of challenges were addressed. We've seen that, we've experienced it ourselves. We're NetSuite users also. So we've been using NetSuite for over 12 years. And as a software developing company that has a lot of different users that also have to submit their timesheets, we go through the tribulations and the complications of doing a timesheet. So that's where the idea came from, and the solution basically is Blue Memento. So Blue Memento is a timesheet solution. So I wanted to take some time to show you what the solution looks like. But we scattered the market. We saw that there was no product in a NetSuite marketplace that addressed those specific solutions, and also didn't require you to change your processes. You know, we wanted to make sure that if you're a NetSuite user, you keep your same projects, your same tasks. We don't change the way you do things. We just give you a different tool to empower you to do it better. So we give you different integrations and different tools to make sure that you do things a lot simpler, and it makes the whole experience a lot more seamless. There's major impacts, and I know that Adam mentioned these before also, is when we're talking about, you know, wasting the wasted time is one thing, but especially on reducing errors and emissions, and when it comes down to billing and expense reports as well, you want to make sure that, you know, everything is precise. So that's why we developed that solution for that specific purpose. So I'll show you what the Blue Memento looks like. It's very easy. There's nothing complicated with regards to that. I'm just going to go ahead and share that with you guys. Just give me a second here. So there we go. So this is basically what we developed. Anyone that's used timesheets quickly will understand really what traditional timesheets look like. We kind of reinvented the wheel when it comes down to that. So it's a complete different timesheet paradigm. It's not what you're accustomed to. So it's not your typical, timesheet where you have to search for your project. You kind of have to remember what it is. So we simplified all of that. We made it user-friendly, and that's pretty much the first thing you see. So once you log on to Blue Memento using the same credentials that you use in NetSuite, we also give you tools like, for example, integrations with Google and Microsoft, so you can do a single sign-on directly with there. And what you basically see is the product in front of you. So you'll have the same things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So your projects will be here, your different Jira tickets we integrate with Jira. We'll be integrating also with Teams and also with Zoom. So anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, you'll see it in your timeline on the left-hand side. That's what Blue Memento is. It's basically giving you the power to integrate all your different project management tools, communication tools, emails, and everything else, to be able to visualize all of that in one single screen. And we inspired ourselves with a little bit of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I'll explain that quickly to you as well. So the process is simple. Your timesheet's on the right. You basically see all your weekdays. You can see weekends if you do also overtime. You select also your day. So your day's a 7.5-hour day, and it's basically just filling buckets. So you just drag and dropping the items directly into your timesheet. It's the same project and tasks that you have in NetSuite as well. So you could select them here. There's also search capabilities too, but it's going to be the same ones that you usually are allocated to the user also. So what I mean also by having different smart or machine learning techniques is by basically recognizing the patterns that you do on a regular basis. So you saw where I created the task and the project. It associated, it created in green. When I clicked it a second time, it did the association instantly, so that you don't have to repeat those patterns. It could also be a matter of all of us being in a meeting together. The first person that submits his timesheet will associate the project and the code. And at the end of the day, the second, third person that will do the same action will also be associated too. So what we want to go to today is basically giving you tools to be able to do your timesheet a little quicker by just drag and dropping, doing the association, like I said before, or you could do things manually on your timesheets. Those are all quick tools that we can do as well to make things a little simpler. You could have that added to your favorites as well. So the favorites bar is also a kind of a bookmark bar, if you can see it that way, where if you have certain tasks or certain clients that you're working on, they could be bookmarked and saved so that you don't have to actually filter through it. So for example, you can have a holiday, you know exactly what the code and project is. You want it to do a fixed duration where it fills your day, then you'll just drag and drop it onto your timesheet and it'll do that. We've done some surveys. We know that some of the users save about 75% of the time doing timesheets. So it's really a rapid time saver. It's adaptable as well. We can customize it depending on your specific needs. So if you have, specific entries that you want to do, or if you have, let's say, you want to lock certain functionalities, we could go ahead and customize it. So the tool is made to answer most of your current needs, but that can all be customized too. And I have to note also that it's a real-time connection to NetSuite, so you don't have to export anything, and you don't have to synchronize necessarily. Once you hit the submit button, once your timesheet is completed, it's a connection to NetSuite that is instantaneous. So it's a two-way communication. You'll be able to see that in NetSuite, and if you have to go ahead and make any edits, once everything is turned blue, once your timesheet is completed, you could go ahead and edit them as long as it has been approved. So you could just go ahead and do the edit button, change that directly into your Blue Memento, and then just synchronize that one specific task. You could do it daily, you could do it weekly. We know a lot of consultants like to do things on the fly so they can complete their timesheet as they go. And we also have an approval module too. So approvers can go ahead and approve timesheets on Blue Memento, and they can also communicate directly with the users too. So if they say they want to go ahead and reject a specific time entry, they'll input their note. The user will be able to see it on his end, and it will be able to modify his timesheet. So the purpose behind that is that we want the users to remain on Blue Memento, not have to waste time with all the back and forth. We want that communication to be done live onto NetSuite, and at the same time, where we wanna go with Blue Memento is that we want it to become more of a predictability product, something that will be able to basically tell you what your timesheet is supposed to look like and predict it in order for you to just go ahead and then approve it. So we're also going to be adding suggestions. So we know what your timesheet is. We know basically what the projects you worked on. So it's going to be a matter of just go ahead and approving all the different tasks and all the projects you worked on, and then go ahead and send it to NetSuite. So we're innovating a lot onto that. We're adding a lot of different features. So the product is evolving at a very fast rate. We want it to become a fun tool to use. We want to empower you with all the right add-ons so that things can be done a lot quicker and a lot easier as well. What I noted before about reducing errors and omissions, this is really an important part as well. When you have timesheet entries and you're not exactly sure about the exact time frame, you want to make sure that you have those precise timings so that there's no errors in your billing and payroll as well. And this is where we give you a synchronization with your tools so that everything's calculated to the minute, and those marginal little changes will make a big impact on your bottom line. So those are really important things to note as well. So this is pretty much what the tool is. We're also adding different reporting tools, so you'll be able to get a quick recap of what you've done during the week. So it gives you an idea as to the projects you worked on, and at the same time, we're a very friendly team. We answer feedback quite often as well. So if any one of you want to go ahead and schedule a demo with us, we'll be glad to do that. You can communicate with me and with my colleague Jeff as well. We'll be able to answer your questions, understand what your challenges are, see how we can answer them as well. And we also take feedback directly from our application as well. So if anybody has any feedback, they could submit them. We'll get them right away. We'll answer those quite quickly as well. So we'll be able to always adapt the tool and make sure that it meets your current needs at the same time. So that's pretty much it from my end, Mark.
Michael, I have a question.
Yes.
From what you're drawing from on the left-hand side, like you have things that are yellow that obviously aren't tasks within NetSuite. So where is that pulling from? Is that pulling from like a Microsoft Outlook calendar, or are you just using the calendaring in Blue Memento and that's how you guys operate?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Stephanie. So those are the settings that you have access to. So currently we integrate with Google and Microsoft. So those are the yellow entries you saw, or their calendar entries.
Okay.
same thing that you would see on your Google and Microsoft calendars. So you give it access to the amount of calendars you want. You might have multiple calendars, so you just want to visualize a few of them. Also, note that we don't keep any of that information, so the private information, we just make them visual for you to be able to complete your timesheet. But they're essentially the tasks and the activity that you worked on your own calendar. And we also have your email activities too. So we add a certain value to emails as well. If you spent an hour just sending back and forth emails, you might want to add that to your timesheet. And the blue ones you saw, they're actually Jira tickets too. So we know a lot of different support tickets are being handled. Those are timed, they're valuable. So you'll be able to see those Jira tickets directly there, kind of see the high level information on there as well, and add them to your timesheets.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. If there's any other questions, if time still permits, Mark, I'm willing to answer any questions as well.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you very much. And we love it when a sponsor and a vendor is presenting and they are Canadian. Excellent. We don't get that too often. You know,
Yeah, we're in friendly
awesome.
Quebec, so yeah, we're definitely Canadian, and we're definitely welcoming as well.
Great. Awesome. Any other questions for Blue Momento?
As I mentioned before, if anyone want to communicate with me directly, we could give you guys that personalized demo. And then also sometimes by understanding how your setups are, we could make recommendations based on, we could tailor it and we could tweak it to make sure that we answer those specific needs that you have.
Excellent.
And then just a little quick note also, if you go on our website, if anyone want to play with the Blue Memento, there's a button on top of the page. You could just go ahead and have a dummy account created for you. And then you could play around with it, try to understand how it works. And we could set up a trial directly on your sandbox if you need to as well on your workplace. So you could have your own projects and tasks so that you can kind of see how it works in your own environment too.
Fantastic.
Great.
Great.
And just an FYI, I put the link to the draw for the gift card in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Darcy. All right. That's great. Thank you. All right, Alan, I think you're up next on our agenda. Thanks for joining, and looking forward to learning more about some workflows and beyond.
Yes. Thank you so much. Can you guys all hear me okay?
Sound great.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you for having me. My name's Alan Isola. I'm with a company called MGBC. We try and do a lot of help with clients, specifically around workflows, but a number of other things. But today specifically was going to talk about workflows in general. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Everyone see my screen okay? Oops.
Yeah.
Yep, it's great, Alan.
All right. There we go. All right. So Mark had mentioned before that you guys kind of already did a dive into workflows a little bit. So you may know some basics, some foundations. So we actually were going to, jump into a little bit more of the quote unquote advanced features, or maybe some things that most people, don't really dabble in. A lot of workflows are used just for setting a field value here or there, things like that. But there's so much more available to workflows that a lot of people don't always take advantage of. So we wanted to jump into some of those today. So today, we got 3 examples of workflows that I was going to walk through here. And there's a lot to them, so I'm probably going to move kind of fast. So I apologize if I do skip through some things pretty quickly, but there's a lot of information I wanted to get through. So the 3 workflows that we wanted to go over is an estimate approval workflow. And then this isn't like a normal approval workflow. I'm sure you guys have used those before, but this is more so our customer is going to approve our email, our estimate, sorry. And we're going to use the send email action, transform record action, the create line action, and also take a look at scheduled transitions, which is our pretty cool feature as well. We're gonna look at a workflow that does like recurring billings or subscriptions, however you want to term it. So we'll look at the scheduled workflow feature there. And again, the transform record action, and then how to incorporate save search criteria into your workflow. And then lastly, kind of a build your own SuiteLit. So for those who don't know, SuiteLit is like the invoice sales order page that NetSuite has with all the orders, and there's checkboxes on the side to process orders. You can build your own using a workflow, which is pretty cool. So we're going to walk through that as well. So diving right in into our estimate approval workflow. So the idea here is we want to, our sales reps, we're going to send an email out to the customer saying, here's your quote or your estimate. We're going to give them the option to approve it using an email reply to approve that. We're going to automatically create our sales order based off of that approval. And then we're going to incentivize our customer to go ahead and take action, within a time frame. So we're going to validate that incentive, auto apply incentives if the customer kind of reacts within the time frame, and then also invoice them, all the way at the end. So hopefully kind of automating your order to cash process from just simply sending an email to the customer. So the first step here is we're going to create a workflow. It's a transaction type workflow based on the subtype of estimate. We're going to make it event based, and we're going to run it on the create and view or update events. And then just as a quick note, I try not to put too many conditions here on the overall workflow configuration. I find it helps me with troubleshooting. If you condition the actual initiation of the workflow, sometimes it makes it harder to know what the issue is because the workflow hasn't even started yet, right? So I try to leave this pretty well clean as far as conditions go, and put all my conditions inside the actions and transitions that are happening. But again, you can do what you like, but if it hasn't even started the workflow, you can't review the logs to see what errors you're getting. So that's why I always like to leave this pretty well open. And then we're just going to do two simple states here, not a real big, huge spaghetti of workflow states. And in our first state, we're going to do 3 actions here. So first thing we're going to do is send an email to the customer saying, here's your estimate. The next is we're going to set a custom field I made called incentive end date. And then we're going to uncheck that sent email box. So the idea here is I made a custom field on the estimate called send estimate for approval. And when that's true, it's going to send an email. So, we don't send emails out every time the record's edited and saved. We don't want that. So we're going to give the user the ability to kind of mark that box when they want it sent. I also created a custom record called incentive, and on it is just a few fields. One is your discount, one is a free gift maybe, and one is the duration or the expiration days of that. So we want to give them, let's say, 5 days to react to this estimate. So we assign our incentive to the estimate. It pulls in how many days the incentive is good for. And we're going to then calculate our end date based off of today's date plus the incentive days. So that's a custom record we built. Just pretty easy, a couple fields on it to go ahead and help us with this incentivization. And then lastly, we're going to uncheck that send email estimate for approval box, because if we leave it checked, every time you edit and save, it's going to send an email. So we want to uncheck it after the email gets sent. So someone has to recheck it again to manually trigger it. And the nice thing about workflows is it will work through the actions in succession. So, that whatever's at the top of the list is going to get fired first. Whatever's at the bottom of the list will get fired last. So we know unchecking that box won't interfere with our sending of the email.
There's a comment or question in the chat, and I can
Yes.
read it for you, Alan. It's from Brad. Granted on the conditions on initiation, but I thought I've been told that ends up slowing everything down if say 99 out of 100 records initiate the workflow, then go no further.
Yeah, so that is a good point. If you don't put any conditions, it will fire the workflow on every record. So if you are, like, if you know that you want this to only happen in very, very specific use cases, you can add conditions there to limit that performance hit. But if you don't know very specific criteria, then I usually try and leave them pretty wide open. But yeah, that is a good point. If you do put conditions there, it will limit how many records get brought into this workflow unnecessarily. But again, you want to make sure that that is very solid criteria. Yeah, that it is always going to be that way, so you don't you don't unnecessarily exclude things. So we're going to add one transition from state 1 to state 2. So we're going to our approved state, and we're going to use the scheduled trigger here. And then NetSuite has a backend scheduler that runs every 30 minutes, and it runs top of the hour and every half hour. And it will go through and evaluate the condition or criteria of the record, and then process the transition if it meets the criteria. So here's where you can set up a safe search to be your criteria. And it will look at that save search. And if your record falls in one of the results of that save search, it's going to go ahead and transition it to the next state for us. So that's something that you can use a lot if sometimes after record submit or before record submit triggers don't work unless somebody is actively interacting with the record itself in the UI, where this schedule can pick it up for you when changes happen, to other records joined to this or things like that. So that's where this schedule kind of really comes into play. That's really nice. So here's our criteria of our save search. So essentially we're just looking at the messages joined to our estimate, the emails under the communication tab. We're looking in the body of that email. So that's what that messages.messages in the text formula text is. And if the word approve is found in the body, it's going to go ahead and approve this. So there obviously could be some potential points of failure here. You can add more criteria into this if sure that the email is there, or the recipient is the sales rep, or also the body does not contain the word not or something in case they type not approved. So there's a number of different other criteria you can add in here to kind of focus this down if you feel those are potential failure points. But I have used this method in a couple different accounts, and it does work fairly well. And it saves you on licenses. People don't need to log into NetSuite to approve things. They can just reply and hit type approved, and it moves things through an approval workflow pretty nicely, which is kind of cool. So then when we get into our approved state, we're just doing a couple of things here. So we want to go ahead and set the approval date to today. And then I do have just a custom field on there for a status, and we'll set that to approved. And then our transform record action. So we're going to go ahead and transform our estimate into a sales order once they type or reply that approval. Inside our transform record action, our parameters here, we're going to make it a sales order. And so NetSuite has this transform record action is very powerful, but it's kind of limited. There's only a few combinations of things you can do with it. You can't like turn a custom record into, a purchase order or something like that. It's very specific to very consistent use cases. So like an estimate to a sales order to an invoice, purchase order to a vendor bill, those types of transformations are allowed. But outside of those very common ones, there isn't many other transform record supported. So there's documentation on exactly which combinations are out there, but this one is definitely within it. So The other nice thing is you can set values on the new record you're creating as well. So on that sales order, we're going to set the memo field to just, hey, approved by email. And then the approval date, we'll set it to today. So the estimate approval date to today. One other side note is that redirect without saving checkbox. If you check that, it'll actually, if you do this in the user interface, like you add a button to your estimate that says create sales order and you click it, it'll actually open a new sales order in edit mode, already transformed from your estimate, and then you can manipulate it and then save it. But since we're doing this in the background on a schedule, there's no reason to go that redirect without saving. But if you were to use this in the user interface, that's what that would do. So now we're going to link this with a second workflow. So this is a workflow that's running on the sales order transaction, and we're going to pick up that new sales order that we are creating from our estimate, and we're going to do some actions on it here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the ship date. And what we did here is I made a custom field called expected days to ship. And that field is being sourced from a saved search. So a saved search is taking all the line items off the sales order. And if that line item is back ordered, it's getting the lead time of that item. And then it's finding the maximum lead time out of all the back ordered items and using that as the number of days we can expected that we can ship this order. And then we're adding that to today's date and setting our ship date field to be today plus the longest lead time of any back ordered item. So this is a way, NetSuite is a really handy tool that even though that store value checkbox is unchecked on our custom expected days to ship, because you can't store the value of a field sourced from a safe search. NetSuite will run that search in real time as it runs this workflow and get the dynamic real-time value from it while this workflow is happening, the action is happening. So that's a pretty cool tool you can use to get dynamically sourced values as part of your conditions, transitions, and even use it to set another field's value. And so we're just going to take today's date, extend it out the longest lead time of a back-ordered item, and set our ship date to that to have the system help us with some planning there. Secondarily, we're going to set the discount on this sales order as long as that incentive end date is after the approval date of the estimate that we, those two date fields we made. And then here we're going to do the create line action. This one is pretty cool too. So you can add a line to the bottom of the sales order. And we're pulling from our incentive record what item is our free item or our gift, and adding that as the last line on the transaction, as long as the approval date is within that end date of the incentive. And then lastly, we're going to send an email back to the customer saying, hey, thanks for your approval. Here's your order number. And then they get a copy of the order. We're also going to add a transition in this state, another scheduled one, but this one is not using a saved search criteria. It's just using regular conditional criteria, and it's looking for when the sales order is in pending billing status. It's just going to move it to the build state. And then, as you could probably guess, in the build state, we're going to transform it into an invoice. So now with these two workflows joined together, you can email your estimate out to your customer. They can approve it, and it'll walk itself through the order to cash process all the way to invoice without anyone interacting with it, which is kind of a nice automation throughout the system you can build. So this is what the customer will see when they first create that estimate. They can view the estimate there. They can reply saying approved. And now we've created our sales order here, automatically applied that discount, and added our free gift at the bottom that was part of their incentive. And then if you look at the communication tab, you can see that order acknowledgement was sent out to the customer, giving them their sales order number and the details of their order, including that planned ship date that we calculated off of those lead times. All right. So I know that was a lot all at once, and I know I'm moving fast, but a lot to get through here. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or I know there's a Q&A after at the end of the thing. I'll stick around and answer questions then too for you guys. We'll jump into our recurring billing here. So one of the things we can do is we'll set up a subscription or a recurring billing model. We can define the frequency, and then we can also define if there's an end date to it or not. So we'll show you how that works. All I did is I'm going to leverage the estimate record again. I made 3 custom fields on the estimate. One is next invoice date, the frequency, and then the end date. So to first set this up, you would create an estimate. You would put when the recurring billing starts based off the next invoice date, how often you want the bill to be sent, so every 30 days, whatever the case is, and then when it ends. So we're going to do this for a year, every month for a year. And then on your line items, just set up what the charges are for your recurring billing, consulting services, whatever it is, and NetSuite will bill for that each month as we go through this workflow. So the trick to this is setting up a safe search as the criteria to initiate your workflow. So what we want to do is we want to find any invoice in the system where the next invoice date is today. We're going to run this workflow every day, but it's only going to grab one in estimates that have that next invoice date of today and create invoices for you. So it's pretty cool that you don't have to worry about setting all sorts of fields. It's just the one field and this one piece of criteria saying next invoice date is today, and it'll go ahead and trigger the workflow when that date is reached. So on our workflow setup, it's just a one state workflow, but as you can see over in the setup here, we're going to use our save search criteria. That's the save search we just made. When you run a scheduled workflow, you have to use a save search as the criteria of it. And then you can set the schedule. So we're going to run it every day at 9 o'clock. And what it'll do at 9 o'clock, it'll evaluate that save search. If any estimates show up on it as a result, in the results tab, it's going to go ahead and run the actions of our workflow on those, and then do it again the next day. So within our workflow, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set a workflow field called the current next invoice date. So a workflow field, you can create fields within the entire workflow. So as long as the record is in the workflow, this workflow field will apply to it. Or you can create workflow state fields where as long as this record is in the state of the workflow, this field will apply to it. So we made a workflow field called current next invoice date. And the first thing we want to do when it enters the workflow is we want to set that field based off of the next invoice date of the estimate right now when it initiates the workflow. So we're essentially holding that date to the side. Then we want to create an invoice. So just like we did in the last workflow, we're going to use transform record to create an invoice. And then next, we're going to grab that current next invoice date that we made in our workflow field. We're going to add to it the frequency. So we have every 30 days we set on our invoice. So it's going to add 30 days to that, and then repopulate the next invoice date field on the estimate to that new date. So essentially pushing it forward by 30 days. So then when that day is reached, it'll trigger the workflow again and push it forward another 30 days. So again, just using this one simple state to generate invoices over and over from your estimate is a really nice way to create kind of a subscription-based model or some recurring billings here. And then in our transform record action, you can see we're doing, again, setting some fields. We're dynamically sourcing the memo here based off of today's date. We're going to grab the month and year. So we can just tell the customer, hey, this is for April 23 invoice, May 23 invoice, that type of thing. kind of give a dynamic update as each invoice is created. One thing you can do, so this gets a little bit, there's a lot of different factors that play into this, but you can tie this with projects as well. So if you assign your estimate to a project, you can create one of those fields that's sourced by a safe search, and the search can calculate up anything you want about that project, maybe all the project costs that are currently associated with it, maybe hours, build hours, whatever you want to calculate up in that safe search. You can do that with a custom field sourced by that safe search, filtered down to the project assigned to this estimate. Then you can use that safe search in that value as you create the invoice each month. So you can store that value on the invoice and use it to update the line amount or create a new line on the invoice to bill for, time. If you have time entries, add up all the time entries, that becomes the quantity that you bill to the customer. A lot of different options you can do there with projects, even to get some dynamic data into your recurring invoices. So again, there's a lot of criteria that can affect this. I know everyone runs projects a little differently, but if you bill based off of cost or based off of time, you can use this as another way to bill customers as well. All right, so the last thing is our custom suitelet here. So just checking time. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a event-based workflow, and we're going to leave it as not initiating. We don't want this to run automatically, so we can just leave it as non-initiating. And then all we're going to do here is we're going to send an email. So this is a customer-based workflow, and you may know, you may not know, but if you do a customer-based workflow, they add another parameter inside the send email action called include attachment or include statement, sorry. And you can include a statement for that customer as a PDF, set the statement date, all the same features of the generate statements native portlet or native suitelet. But one of the things that we can do here with our custom workflow is you can define a different email address to send it to than the native email. You can send it to multiple email addresses if you want to do that. There's a lot of different options you can do. You can customize the text that gets sent to the customer in the email. So this, your workflow, whatever you want, sending an email, but you can have it do anything, set values, change status fields, all sorts of things. And when you go to lists, mass updates, you can get to the bottom section here says workflows. And within that, you can do one of 4 processes to your workflow. So you can initiate it. So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to initiate the workflow on the selected records. You can process it. So process is related directly to the add button action. So if you have added a button to your record in the workflow using that add button action, you can use that button in this process workflow action, mass update. And essentially it's the same as clicking that button for 100 records in bulk all at the same time. The cancel one, that is pretty straightforward, just canceling a workflow. So the records are no longer, in it. And then transition, again, all it is transitioning it from its current state to whatever other state you want. The transition one is agnostic of how you set up your workflow. So if you have some transitions already set up, you don't need to follow that path. You can just force a transition to any state in the workflow, regardless of what it is. So the concept here is within your mass update, you go to the criteria tab and just set the criteria just like you would a save search. So we only want to see customers that have an overdue balance greater than 0. When you go to the results tab, you can set up what columns get shown in the mass update, just like a save search. And then if you click preview, this is what it looks like. So similar to that SuiteLit. You have your checkboxes. You can choose to check or uncheck whatever company you want to send these invoices to. And then when you click perform update, it's going to run all the actions in that workflow against those records. So in this case, sending out the statement, and it'll process that for you. So one other trick here is on this screen, as before you click perform update, if you copy the URL of it and go to customization center links, you can make a custom center link that leads you right to that page. And then you can assign that center link to any of the menu path tabs, under transactions or lists, and name bulk email statements, whatever you want to call it. And that's a nice way to navigate to it without having to go through the saved mass updates, which is pretty cool. So other than that, that is the examples I wanted to show today. I just wanted to give a little bit more about MGBC. Again, we do a lot of help with customers making their businesses more efficient. We do focus a lot on workflows, because I think workflows are a way that administrators and those who aren't full developers can really leverage NetSuite to make it incredibly efficient. So on our website, we've got a blog you can read with a lot of tips on workflows. We've got links to NetSuite documentation. And we've also built some enhanced workflow actions that take the native NetSuite actions further. So there's a lot of limitations you can't do. So we've built 10 custom workflow actions that are incredibly helpful to users, from being able to add a pop-up into your workflow where someone can type in a value and hit OK, and it will store what they typed in, that input, on the record within your workflow. You can create a PDF of your document or of your record in any template you want. You can set field values on joined records. You can manipulate sublists. I know NetSuite gives you the ability to manipulate the item sublist, but you can manipulate any sublist, expenses, lined sublist on journal entries. A lot of different functions in here that NetSuite is currently limited to. We've enhanced that to really take workflows to the next level here. So that's, a little bit about us. And again, I really appreciate Mark and everyone inviting me here, and happy to take questions if there's time, or I can wait till the Q&A at the end as well.
This is really good, Alan. There's huge value there. I just want to point out to the members that what Alan has designed here, he does sell these solutions from his website. Alan, you're doing that, but you're doing that at a really low cost too. It's really effective, like at $300 per feature. That is, I know I would spend $300 myself just in time trying to invent some of these things, or more, and probably be frustrated, where you've just done it. You've done the heavy lifting for us. It's really good.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, we try to, it's not a subscription. You just buy it and you get it, use it however you want. So some really powerful tools here. I will say my favorite is that go to URL. The ability that you have with that thing is incredible. I've set up even like really basic integrations with systems using that go to URL action. Between HubSpot or Slack or something like that. I mean, it's just super powerful what you can do with that one. So I obviously am a little biased, but I love all these extra features you can start to leverage with these type of things.
Awesome. That's great. Any other questions for Alan? And again, you're going to share your slides with us, right, Alan, so that we can send this out to our members that attended today. Okay.
Yeah, I'll share these with you, and you can follow the steps yourself and build these. Also, like I said, our blog has a lot of this same content where it walks you through exactly how to build this stuff with screenshots. So if you want to follow our blog, there's a lot of great information there as well.
Great. Awesome. Thank you again. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, next up, we have Stephanie doing our customer spotlight today. Stephanie, you're all set? You're on mute. Stephanie, we can see your slides, but you're on mute right now.
Okay, now can you see my slides and hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. So just a little bit about Fuse Health. We are a healthcare communication company, so professional services based. We've been with NetSuite for about 5 years. Our clients are, we work with pharmaceutical companies, professional associations, patient advocacy groups. So a variety of different groups with different needs and how we've needed to adapt things. I would say from our overall value proposition, we really focus on planning and objectives and timing and budget and scope. So everything I'm hearing today of how we can increase efficiencies in different parts of what we're using in NetSuite, whether it's timesheets or workflows, is great because we're always trying to do that. We also know that there's no perfect system and humans are always still going to be humans. And so not only is it how can we help with efficiencies and tweaking the system for our teams, but also how can we put in some of those double check measures, I would say, in some of our reporting. We have done a lot of customizations for our business model. I think it was a long transition, to be honest, to go from our old system into NetSuite. And part of it was because our model is a bit different. And some of the things that we wanted to do were just, we needed to do a lot of customization. So some of the screens I'll show are some similar to maybe what Adam has shown, but with the tweaks done for our team specifically. I would say we still use in estimating, because we have so many assumptions and details that go into things, we still use Excel, but we've mapped out an Excel document that goes to our summary tasks or individual tasks and summaries in NetSuite. And that's one of those checks and balances. They're doing it in one place, putting it in, and it allows us to keep up with, how we captured everything. Project management, again, we're very detailed down to quarter hours and different kind of details for, we work with a lot of individual, do a lot of advisory boards. So we're sending out things to different positions. And so we need something that has a lot more detail, and we use WorkZone for that. Ideally, if the time could come together, it would make everybody's life improve. But for right now, we're managing around that. I would say we use a lot of different, within project management, we create a lot of different kind of timelines. And for us, one of the big things going into it was that our customer reconciliations require us in our MSAs to be very detailed by task, by person, by rate. So the schedules are critical for us to create so that we have that detail in the end. Just go across a couple of things that we found useful when we were doing our customizations. This is just our financial dashboard on the project page. And a couple of things that we added in was a burn rate, because it's not necessarily always allocated time to actual time that's important to us, because we can switch up people in their roles. But the burn rate of efficiency to estimate is important, and we put that on all of our status reports, so it's a place to get it really quickly. The other thing is when we do revenue calls in the month, because we don't call all the margin at the same time. I'm not on the financial team, so they have a whole back end for that. But for my project management team, it's here and they can see it in one place. As Adam was pointing out, we do bottom-up staffing. And in talking about this, this is on one of our simpler projects, but we break it out by the actual person, by the service item, and by the estimated work time. And that allows us to keep on top of the resources. I think the other thing for us from a time management perspective, so interesting in Michael's presentation too, is the notes for us are just as critical in time entries. And I think for anybody in this industry where they have to put time in, like, it is the bane of our existence. I'm always the time police cop. So anything that we can do to make it easier. And for the project managers, it's a matter of, from the time tracking tool within the projects, we can go in and we can pull up any employee name. We can look at their notes. Sometimes we'll have projects that start out as one project and go to something else, they can put the notes in here, and it allows us easy to be able to do those time transfers from one project to another. And I have to say, with all the detail, we recognize 99.9% of our time. So I think that, you know, if you provide the right tools and the right overviews for people, we can just be more efficient and capture more revenue. Sorry, that's a little blurry there. What we did need to do, though, was create our own estimate to actual report. So we did work on a customization report when we were going through the process. And for us, it was a couple of things. This would be an even better report if we could have done it by person, but we had to do it by item and role. But it allows the project managers a really quick shot to see, okay, these people were out of scope on this project. In the humans are humans, sometimes people put their time to the wrong place. It highlights it really quickly with this just saying it's out of scope, and then they can go back and look at the time tracking and see if it needs to be done differently. It also highlights it from when we were talking about intercompany. So our sister company, we use their creative services, so their time appears on these reports, and often it can be that they're putting it under the wrong time code, and so we can see that before our project managers use this. Some of them use it daily, some of them use it weekly, but just within a quick time frame so that we can make any of those adjustments. It also, this is not a good representative of it because there aren't very many outside costs, but it also captures the outside costs so we can see those that coming in and make sure that they've been assigned to the right task. And that's kind of leveraging off of Adam's presentation, and I just kind of thought I'd leave it open to questions that you guys might have, because I know not everybody on this call are using projects from the polling done at the very beginning, but I'd be open to if anybody has any questions on what we've done or how we've enhanced things, or just let me know. I've just saved you time in the agenda, Mark.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was great. Thank you. Anybody have questions specific for Stephanie or Adam as well on projects as we loop around? No, we're good. I do want to open a Q&A for the next 15 minutes. You can bring a question to the group. Could be something for any of the presenters today. I have a question for Alan. Maybe I can start it off for you guys. Alan, that first workflow that you showed, that's great, because I've been struggling with NetSuite supply allocation and getting that turned on. Specifically for, I've got a bunch of POs that we imported in NetSuite at our cutover integration a few years ago, 3 years ago now, and they're still hanging around as partially received, but we had inbound shipments attached to them. We had ownership transferred attached to those. So I can't really close them. I can't cancel them. I can't receive them and then close it. I'm kind of stuck in a bind. So I haven't been able to release supply allocation, which tells me, which POs inbound are attached to my SOs. But seeing your workflow sparks some new interest there, and maybe doing it and using your solution. Have you seen others, or have you experienced, the supply allocation side, or gone that one step further by attaching or linking the SO to the exact transaction that you're finding in that workflow?
Yeah, it does get tricky when you start to bring in line item data and try and link lines together with workflows. That does get pretty complicated. But there are a lot of things you can do from, like we said, calculating up, using a save search to calculate up line data and use that data within conditions. You can also create links to maybe save searches that are dynamically filtered. So if you want to say, okay, show me all the items on this sales order and when they're coming in and all this sort of thing. You can make a link you click on that opens a pop-up that shows you some of that information right from the sales order. Things like that. But yeah, with workflows, when you're trying to link two line items together, that does get very complicated, but using one set of line items on header level information is definitely really doable. So
Cool. I'm definitely going to experiment with that one for sure. It's good. Okay. Open to any members. Unmute yourself, ask a question, put it in the chat, whatever you guys want. No questions. This is an easy one this week.
I have one for any of the members. If there's anyone, we're looking at AP automation. We're reviewing vendors at this point. But I'm wondering if anybody has any experience with implementing AP automation with NetSuite, if you'd be willing to share thoughts and experiences, who you picked and why. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'd be happy to listen to it.
It's fully customizable. I can add details you want.
It was my understanding that the NetSuite AP automation didn't work outside of the US at this point.
Yes, no, I verified that as well. I'm looking at other vendors. Like we're looking at
We
all the
just
big guys.
recently did Zip and everybody's loving it.
Zip, I haven't even heard of them.
Yeah, they're fairly new, but they seem to handle Canadian stuff pretty well. They are really user friendly. So like we have it rolled out to the entire company and it's awesome.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, the URL is Zip HQ, just if you're looking for it, because there's a lot of things called Zip.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Now, may I know why you need us to
Darcia, it depends which part of the AP
about
automation you're kind of looking for. We implemented SquareWorks, their solution for AP automation, and a portion of that, and that was mainly the OCRing of incoming bills and creating those vendor bills automatically and setting up a complex approval process that's outside of NetSuite's native employee hierarchy. That's another one to maybe take a
Okay,
look
so it's called Square.
SquareWorks. Yeah, they're out of Boston. They're a solution provider.
Okay.
We've got a few neat solutions, but I had a really good experience with them in the implementation. Our users are loving that as well from an OCR vendor bill creation perspective. It is not taking it beyond that, like the paying of those invoices. There is a three-way match there and stuff, but like Gavin said, us Canadians are kind of limited with some of that payment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the US
Yeah.
has more features.
I can second SquareWorks. I've used SquareWorks before and had a good experience with them. Also, Zone & Co makes a similar product. They can't do three-way matching, but the rest of it is pretty same concept. OCR approvals, create invoices. It's very similar product.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And if you want to see Zip and you want to see ours, I'm happy to show you sometime. Like if you want to reach out on LinkedIn or whatever.
Well, that's awesome. I actually would appreciate that.
Okay, I'll send you my email address here.
Okay, thank you.
And this is exactly the collaboration that we're hoping to get out of our meetings. It's great to see.
Yeah, and just for the record, I mean, usually what they do is it's not that their AP automation might not support Canadian dollars or whatever. They just limit the customers that they'll sell it to until for the first release or two until they try and slow down the rollout, basically. So it's more than controlling the rollout as opposed to it not supporting foreign currency or something. That's usually the way it goes.
Thanks, Gavin. And I'm glad you joined the party today.
So
A little late, a little busy over here.
that's the first thing. On the same folder, you just click on email button, or your PDF and that how it works, and just add the sitting team.
Any other
And,
questions? Oh, we've got
it will be-
everybody on? All right, we'll wrap up the meeting. Darrell will post this to our website after the meeting, along with presentations and links. So we will chat with you guys and we'll be in contact. Please answer as many as the poll questions as you can as well at the end, because that helps us with our future planning, especially if you guys are cool with being in person for our next user group meeting. Okay. Thanks, Adam. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks all.
Excellent
being with you.
presentations. Thank you. And
There he
Steph,
is.
thank you.
Thanks.
What
Take care.
we can do
Thank you.
down the road, I can help